look at this. Can you actually just check this out, right? I knew this, right about this. And here we've got one of the Quarter Sessions Acts. This is actually before the 1908 Assizes. I wanted to find the Assizes and Quarter Sessions Act 1908. It's not on legislation.gov, so I've got to order it separate. Because that Assizes and Quarter Sessions Act 1908 will be relevant. But instead, I've got this, it's one of the Quarter Sessions Acts. I think this is the 1814 one. There's 1814 and 1842. There's quite a few of them. But so, I've got this, right? I just read this, right? And I was actually like, wow. I was just like, Parliament are just rejecting these petitions left, right, and centre, and I knew that that it's not based on any legislation or any statute or anything, right, or any of the current modern standing orders they're operating under. Now, when you look through the archives, right, and through the history, it makes reference to some older standing orders, right, and some dialogue that say, how fit and how far petitions are to be received, right? How fit and far are they to be received? Well, I knew that there's that Salisbury Plain story about someone finding a petition on a Salisbury Plain, and then the mayor or someone from the council sends it into Parliament or whatever, and then they say, there's nothing more better to do with than burn it, right? So I knew that looking at all the petitions that Dr. Brodie-Waddell has transcribed, no one could sign their name. They just put a cross on it or a mark, right? They actually had made some rules up where it's got to be signed by the person's themselves, their hand, right? Not someone else on their behalf. It's got to have their mark on it, right? So I know that people, they didn't have compulsory education like we do now. I knew that people couldn't write, and many of them couldn't read, right? They got other people to write it for them. They only represented verbally in person. So I knew that when it said how fit they are to receive is if you can even read it, because we can't even read them now, right? I can't read the petitions. They're not fit to be received by me currently from National Archives until Dr. Brodie-Waddell and his team have translated them, transcribed them, and put most people can only read typing now. Reading other people's handwriting it's a lost art. Now I've been continuing my research on this. There's actually a lot of people know a lot more about this than they're only keeping it to themselves. There is quite a bit on the National Archives here and there. So I've drawn a timeline. I drew one before, now I've drew a better timeline with more details in it because it helps lay everything out chronologically. So, also it's in this administration of the Justice Act 1933, 7.2, it talks about petition of right as well. That's the act when they withdrew the grand jury. This is the main thing that I found out today, which absolutely astounds me, is that no one has made amendments to the Tumultuous Petitioning Act 1661 when they abolished grand juries in 1933 or literally removed them. I just can't believe that, because that act cannot really be used. Now, they've actually covered this up later on when the references to the Tumultuous Petitioning Act amendments in the Criminal Law Act 1967, they've lied. They've said, change words from courts to quarter sessions, right? I don't see any amendments. They don't even have that. They won't put the tumultuous act on legislation.gov, right? So I'm having to get the original version of it just to check the wording, just double check it. And then when they repeal the act in 1986 fully, they don't even refer to all of the offences in there. They only refer to presenting it to the king. They don't refer to the prosecutions against you either for the offences, or to get it confirmed through civil proceedings either. Well, that's not an offence. But, okay then, so they're not abolishing an offence there. Well, it actually is an offence if you go about the business without getting it approved. That is another offence. There are multiple offences in the Act, and they don't care to mention them. I can't see how that Act could have continued without amendments after 1933, all the way up to 1987, right? So that is astounding. I know that the assizes were continued until 1971, and they did have a civil side. But the thing is that when they established the county courts, they dealt with some of the High Court material as well in the county courts. You can have county courts that can do case management for High Court, right? So if you can't be prosecuted at common law after 1688, you can still have kind of like case management. And the thing is that the more and more I'm learning, the more and more that it's getting like the election petition rules, but like petition rules. And so I've drawn out a better timeline, a map now, and the main question now is, in 1846, they got rid of the court, courts of civil requests. The Court of Civil Requests. And they turned it into the county courts. Now, that's when also you can also kind of like get things dealt with between the High Court and the county courts, right? But Quarter Sessions and Assizes did some civil matters as well as criminal. Now, the thing is, right, this is what I've now found out. In 1846, when they ended the Courts of Civil Requests, the 1846 Act, which creates the county courts around England, it says in that Act, right, at the end of one of the sections, it says, the county courts will be a court of record. So unlike the magistrates' courts, which don't properly record all the action that goes on there, says the county courts will be a court of record. Now, were the Courts of Civil Requests a court of record before then? Well, this is the mystery. The Courts of Civil Requests started in 1483. The National Archives have records from 1485 to 1642, but then no more after. Why would the Court of Civil Requests suddenly stop doing records in 1642? Right? There are none after then. There were records from 1485 to 1642, right? But where are the Courts of Civil Request records all the way through? Now, we really, even after, from 1661, which is after the Civil War, and when they made the Tumultuous Petitioning Act in 1661, you would want the records of the Court of Civil Requests, because if there was any question about whether you'd actually had your petition approved or not, they would want to see records of that from the court if they didn't believe you, right? Also would Parliament. So it's I don't believe that they didn't record them. They've only got records up to 1642, unless you can give me a better reason why they stopped. I think they vanished. And I think that someone stole them on purpose, because that would be the bulk records, courts of civil requests for people bringing petitions which had over 20 signatures, more, and that would be the main bulk of the use of the tumultuous act after 1661 up to 1846. Now, this is the thing, right? Parliament burned down in the 1830s when they invented the police force, Sir Robert Peel, right? And a lot of the House of Commons petition archives were lost in the fire, which is confirmed. Dr. Brodie Waltz confirmed that, right? All House of Commons petitions, mainly from 1661 onwards, which we could do with for the House of Commons as evidence, although some got passed over departments, but they've been lost in the fire, right? Now, that happened only about 10 years before they got rid of these courts of civil requests, 1846. So that's like about 10, 12 years after the fire. So where are the records for the courts of civil requests? Did they get burned in the fire? Were they kept in Parliament, or were they kept at the courts around the country? I think that they've been stolen and destroyed to get rid of the evidence of records, because I think that the courts of civil requests, particularly around 1661 onwards, and you got 1688 as well, 1688, 700 all the way through up to 1846. I think those records of the proceedings, particularly after 1688, the Bill of Rights, in civil requests, petitions over 20 signatures, there'll be a hell of a lot of valuable dialogue in those petitions. Now, I'm not saying that they haven't got some of the other quarter sessions and assizes ones, and possibly even King's Bench, but they're saying that they didn't do any records after 1642. I don't believe that. And why would they say when they made that act in 1846, oh, this is going to be a court of record, but we just happen to have lost the other ones, after Parliament's burned down. There's something suspicious going on there. But anyway, back to this act that I've got open in front of me now, right? So I thought, when I read that, how far petitions, how fit and far they are to be received, I knew the Petitions Committee had used that monkey for their little standards skit, and yet there are no rules of what petitions should or should not contain. Now, this Quarter Sessions Act here that I've got open, I just read this, and literally, this is an act of law, and this is literally exactly what I intuited from those statements and those older standing orders that I read, right? And this is for the Quarter Sessions, right? And it says here, halfway down this page, right? This is all about submitting and signing cases for the Quarter Sessions, of which the Quarter Sessions is one of the courts you can put your petitions through before they go to the House of Commons, right? It's got it written all over this, right? It's talking about writs and signatures and so forth, right? But the part here, right, let me just objection of any defect in the form of setting forth any ground of appeal. Right, so it says here, right, be it therefore enacted that upon the hearing of any appeal to any court of general quarter sessions of the peace, no objection on account of any defect in the form of setting forth any ground of appeal shall be allowed. So they can't reject it on what is the form in your writing or petition, kind of like, chapter, paragraph, verse, it's got to be like, title, brief, evidence, signatures, or signatures first, name on the top, then, they can't hold you to any set form or format, right? Because just think, if you look at some of those petition archives that Brother Wells transcribed, they're all completely different. Like in writ, letter, form, there is no uniform format to what order you've got to set it out in, right? That's for sure. So, and then it says, right, no objection shall be allowed or of any defect in the form or setting forth of any ground of appeal shall be allowed, right? No objection shall be allowed, and no objection to the reception of legal evidence offered in support of any ground of appeal shall prevail. No objection against the reception of any evidence. No objection against the reception of legal evidence offered, laid evidence. That's like in the Public Meetings Act, when you got to be allowed to transact evidence in meetings and attend, right? Shall be allowed, and no objection to the reception of legal offers in support of any ground of appeal unless the court shall be of opinion that such ground of appeal is so imperfectly or incorrectly set forth. Imperfectly, that means like scruffy or unreadable, like actually literally like you can't read the handwriting or the letters on it. Imperfectly or incorrectly set forth. And when I set things to the petitions committee, I don't send them incorrectly because I set out the full legislation, right? And they can do it. I know they can do it. Asking them to make me like a pack of sausages. Or incorrectly is to be insufficient to enable the party receiving the same to inquire into the subject of such statement and to prepare for trial. So they need to be able to look into it. Doesn't say what they can and can't look into, just says that they need to be able to read it and understand it so they can look into it, including whose it is. Right? Now that means that also, this is like when you're doing elections, right? This is what I've said the whole time through for elections, right? This is like spoiled ballots, like when you can't read it, right? If you sign a petition, like in America, they're rejecting them left, right, and centre for little mistakes on them, right? Robert F. Kennedy's saying this. Robert F. Kennedy is saying in California, right, if there's one mistake, that's it, they won't accept it. I said, absolute tosh, right? The whole point of you having your name, address, and contact details is so if they don't know what you're asking or saying, they can contact you and ask you and check, inquire, right? That's the point, right? Not like, the reason that you got to be able to read it is so that you can check up on it, right? That's what an investigation is, or evidence. It's a pure investigation, if you have to include your name, but if something's wrong when you write your name, they can't contact you to put it right. If they can't contact you, then, but not like, what F. Kennedy's talking about in California, or like, you put your middle initial wrong. Well, but the email's correct. Well, I'll just have to email them then to check it, to make sure, and by the way, just let me check that they put your vote in the right box. Seeing as though we sent everyone a ballot ticket through the post box with a code number on it and a counterfoil, but yet you go into the polling station and you swap a gold ticket for a silver one with 3 boxes on and a tick, and there are, 300 of them end up in the spoiled ballot box, and no one knows who to contact to check them to make sure they're correct. Not that they want to or can be bothered. This is it. This actually confirms logic. This confirms human intelligence, logic, reason, purpose, not some completely and utterly stupid, Homer Simpson, intelligence that, I don't know how some of these, courts and governments in America function. I'm not knocking Rand Paul, but he's not in California. But where do they get their idea and basis from? Where does it come from? It doesn't come from intelligence. It doesn't come from logic. It doesn't come from, it comes from lack of interest, lack of understanding, just lack of care. This is, you don't even need to find this. But when you find it, it's not even like eureka. It amazes me why you even need to have to explain it to some people. Why do we have to explain this to Californians who just, don't... How can they not get it? They can't not get it. They just don't want to understand it. They don't want to get it. That's the problem with them, It's amazing they ended up, that William Penn and Mead or whatever ended up in America. It shall be the reception of, on ground of appeals, the reception of evidence supported for prevail lawful for the court. It shall so think fit to cause any such ground of appeal before amended by some officer of the court or otherwise, in terms of payment of costs of the party, postponing the trial for another day, the same sessions or to the next sessions, both payment of costs and payment should be reasonable. So to the ground of appeal or to the reception of evidence in support thereof ought to prevail. To prevail, it shall be lawful for such court, if it shall so think fit to cause any such ground of appeal to be forthwith amended by some officer of the court, or otherwise on such terms as to payment of costs or other party, or postponing the trial to another day in the same sessions or to the next subsequent sessions. So, according to this, and to prefer for the trial, provided always that in all cases where the court shall be of opinion that any objections to any ground of appeal or to the reception of evidence in support thereof ought to prevail, shall be lawful for in such court shall think fit. So they're allowed to correct something. They're allowed to correct mistakes, but not change your plea from guilty to not guilty, or like, lie, or, say that you're asking, petitioning for a bunch of grapes, put bananas, but like, if you put, banana, bananas, but it's like clearly supposed to be bananas, then they can correct it and change it. You see, this is in the Quarter Sessions Act. These are one of the courts that you put petitions through, right? This is like this isn't an act of law. This is like for they don't write legislation like this anymore. This is like to help assist with eligibility and explaining why, inquiring into the matter and so forth. This is around. This is around. That's 1849. So that's mid 1800s. That's around that time of that piece that says, how fit and fast to be received. So this is contemporary with that. I knew that it was talking about handwriting, and you actually are allowed to lay evidence, can't be rejected, And that's the thing that I've been arguing with the Petitions Committee in Parliament, What they've been doing is you've been putting links, and I'm still not having those links on there. It's defamatory, or it's false information, or whatever. Well, have you looked into it? Have you investigated? They can't have investigated it. They can't have looked into it, And it hasn't even been tried yet. We're just talking about getting your petition published so you can collect more evidence of public concern, right? Or let them look at the facts and decide. The grand jury. Let the grand jury decide. After all, if you had a grand jury in the Quarter Sessions or in the, courts of civil requests or assizes, right, it would be the grand jury deciding what evidence would be permissible to the House of Commons. How fit and fair it is to be received would be the public. The grand jury deciding, not Cat Smith MP or Scott Benton or, Martin Day, the grand jury decide how fit and fair it is to be received. Well, before 1933. So it doesn't have to go for, if it's under 20 signatures, right? I'll be the judge of that. I'll be the judge of if my evidence, what evidence I'm attaching to it. Not a grand jury. It's under 20 signatures. I don't need a grand jury to check it and authorise it through, right? It can't be rejected. The evidence cannot be rejected, right? So I don't know who is schooling these people. Who's educating them when they come into Parliament? Who is telling them these things? I can look at standing orders and read them, and I get it. They're not complicated. I can look at the Bill of Rights. I can look at any act of law. I read it. I get it. Where are these MPs coming from? Do they put them through some kind of like Keir Starmer training centre? Or do they put them through like an MRI scanning machine or a CT scan? Whoop, like wipe them or something, like whoop, load some, like some kind of, new personality loaded onto them, or what? Is it the Ministry of Justice, the cooks, the cleaners, the clerks, the normal people in Parliament, as Andrew Bridgen says? Oh, we've got all of Parliament's library archives at our fingertips. They can pull this up. They can pull this Quarter Sessions Act out of the library. And by the way, where is the, I'm having to pull out of the I'm having to go to the Parliament Library to get the Assizes and Quarter Sessions Act 1908, because it's not up on there, right? Why isn't the Tumultuous Petitioning Act on legislation.gov? Why not? Don't want them to find it. This is the thing. Where are all the courts of civil request papers? Burned, stolen. This is it, right? Why? Who made that website? Because they don't have these rules for paper petitions. Wasn't it Tony Blair and Gordon Brown made the first online petition website, which didn't have to get insane numbers of signatures, and now they're complaining about all these multiple Extinction Rebellion, Just Stop Oil, thousands of people going berserk on the streets or whatever they're doing, and that whose fault is that? That Crown Prosecution Service, we can prosecute them all now. Well, if you hadn't pulled that tumultuous act, then you wouldn't have been prosecuting them all because they wouldn't have been allowed to do it in the first place without getting it approved by a grand jury that was pulled in 1933, who might have been made up out of half of Extinction Rebellion. This is the thing. There's serious problems here. Now, this tells me that I'm right. I hadn't even read this act. It's common sense. It's common sense. I don't know. It's got to be. It's Labour and the Tories. And they get elected, and then they get a job in Parliament in England, and then it's party politics. You can say all you want, there's got a couple of SNP on there, a couple of independents. No, it is, like Tucker Carlson was saying in his interview with that Tulsi the other day, that, the people like, Hillary Clinton, Obama, all these people get into government and they just, get, they think that they're gods or whatever. Defying logic. Why would you not be able to submit evidence when you're trying to prove something, right? It's your case. You decide what evidence, the court needs to hear, the jury needs to hear, there is, case management and acceptance of cases, but not to the degree that the Petitions Committee are rejecting things. Not to that basis. Yes, there are stupid petitions, but, what about the Monster Raving Loony Party? We're going to make unicorns compulsory to have as pets, Well, that's actually a policy they're running on in local councils, for example, or something along those lines, If Parliament allow the Monster Raving Loony Party to stand in an election next to George Galloway, seriously, with policies like that, then they're asking for trouble. They're going to have to accept, petitions like, everyone has to have an ice cream on their head every Sunday at 6 o'clock for half an hour or something like that. To be honest, we should be. I liked Sundays when it was quiet. I liked it when we had a day when it was quiet. They're ruining the world, all for retail and profit, I don't think that they would have, if they hadn't have pulled those juries from the civil cases, they'd have never done it, because we wouldn't have allowed them, and we wouldn't have had all these headless chicken women groups running around panicking, like, they're ripping up the trees, they're perpetually redeveloping the town centre, they're banging all these housing estates up, bang, 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 building stuff in front of your house so you can't see the view in, working class terrace houses, even when you used to have a nice neighbourhood, but not anymore, getting rid of the park, all this stuff, because they wouldn't have done it. And then there wouldn't have been, if we'd still had the grand juries in the civil cases, there would have been none of this insane, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory mess. Because I don't think that they would have allowed it, and all these ridiculous divorce cases over, billions. People that are just like, they would have just like gone, these people are insane. It's not normal behaviour, But, you get rid of the public and, let's do business, let's do business with the magistrates, get 10%, if you want to claim £200,000, the court gets 10% of it. That's 10 grand profit. If the bigger the claim, the bigger the bonus. So, it's I'm right about this because that explains it. It's the right act. It's the right court that was going through. This is the right court that they were going through. It's clearly explained here, right? This is the legal basis for accepting for what is acceptable evidence. At the time when they were putting petitions through to the House of Commons still, So, 1849, that it was still going. It was still going 1849. So, I mean, they still had, nearly 100 years left. There's got to be some archives after 1846. I think there will be archives after 1846. But I think the real hot stuff, I think, would have been just after 1688. I think there probably are some. All the petitions are there, but they don't give the proceeding They don't give the proceedings, the dialogue in the proceedings. They don't give like all the action in the courtroom, and all the words that are exchanged. People talking about the rights, and talking about Magna Carta, talking about just like in that tumultuous proceedings with William Penn and William Mead, like the Old Bailey case. It's a great specimen of a case. Also, you've got like that John Bastwick and Henry Burton, but that's earlier. That's before 1661. That's like before the Civil War, when they're petitioning House of Commons for release, and they get released by the House of Commons. So, it's, and also, that 1700 as well. 1700, they made it so you couldn't pardon if you got prosecuted by Parliament or impeached. You couldn't get it. You couldn't appeal it after 1700, which is one of the reasons why I don't think that they like it in Parliament now in the Supreme Court. But I just saw Gordon Brown on TV earlier. I don't know what he said, but I just walked past and he was sat there like just being Gordon Brown. I'm still not convinced. I'm still not convinced with his Constitutional Reform Act. But where are these courts of civil requests? Where are all the records? I don't believe that they stopped doing them in 1642. They're poof. They're gone. They vanished up in smoke. All after 1661 up to 1688, and then after that is when all the action was happening, up from 1661 up to 1688, and then after that is literally when it was going off. All that history of England gone, all the proceedings. No wonder Parliament burned down. Just a shame. There's got to be some other cases like that. That William Penn and William Mead case survived, but that's a landmark case. It's tragic that we get like a modern government. It's what it's like what they were saying on Tucker Carlson today about Clinton and all these psychopaths, all these military sending armies here and there and everywhere. They don't believe in the Constitution. They don't believe in rights. It's the people. It's always been the people who have always had to fight for the rights. And I think here, the Royals definitely like got the chisel out and started chipping away at it. They chipped a really big chunk off in 1933 with getting rid of the grand juries, I think, and also getting to. The courts of civil requests. Fair enough if you make it into the county court, but where are all the records gone? It's matter this is a court of record. Well, where are they then? The county court shall be a court of record, but what about the previous records? Why do they only go up to 1642? It seems like it was a court of record. This is it. Unlikely to have records from the hundreds courts, the divisional courts. Apparently, you could just go up to a justice, like, and approach them. I think that was up till about 1800. You could just go. I think you could. I think some of those petitions, when it said it needs to be like 3 justices or a grand jury, I don't think that you had to go into the assizes or quarter sessions or wait for the quarter sessions or assizes. I'm pretty certain now that, from what I've seen, I think that you could go and find a justice, right? You could go find a justice, like, in the hundreds, and get him to, like, okay it, maybe sign it, and then go find another, and like another, until you've got 3 of them who have approved it. Like, I think you might have been able to get them to sign it, like 3 justices, actually sign on the petition itself and write that they've approved it. And when you get 3 of them, then you can go and get another, over 20 signatures. Because it said in the divisional counties, which is the hundreds, but you had justices. There were justices who were out and about, and you could. It tells you that people could, like, get them to approve, getting the churches to give charity and all kind of different things like that. I've got a feeling that if they were approaching them for random matters when they were out and about, when you found them, I'm absolutely certain now that because those quarter sessions were only 4 times a year and the assizes were only so many times a year as well, why would you wait? I think that it says the divisional part. So I'm pretty sure that you sort them out and you got them to sign. You had to go get 3 signatures from 3 justices to approve it before you went and carried on getting, like, 100, 500 people. So they knew what you were doing. I'm quite sure now. I think that I haven't looked at all the petitions of Dr. Brodie Waddell, but he's got, like, some quarter sessions, assizes, Privy Council and House of Lords, but all those House of Commons ones burned down in the fire, so we haven't seen them. A lot of them, the main bulk of the House of Commons ones, those are the ones that people mainly will have been petitioning in the House of Commons. It says you could go to the division, which is 100. I think they were seeking. I think they were going to get it signed off on it, or when the assizes and quarter sessions were in there, you could go in and get the grand jury to approve it. Maybe if those judges didn't approve it, right, or weren't going to, when you could go into the assizes and get it passed by the public, like the grand jury, the public, to approve it, to go ahead, particularly if you wanting to get a lot of people behind it or whatever. Otherwise, you didn't even need to do any of that anyway. If you were just keeping it, like, to a small group of people, you didn't have to do any of that. And you were actually, according to that William Penn and William Mead case, you were entitled to privileges because of Magna Carta. I think you're entitled to privileges because of Magna Carta, because you were getting people to sign it, because you're like of the people signing it, and the fact that it's evidence being submitted over a matter. On the basis of this, is the right to submit a case and evidence that is eligible to read, and it's about a legitimate matter that you want something doing about. And the petitions committee, I've submitted some, really good petitions, and I've checked out the legislation, I've checked out the procedure. They don't give you enough letters or words to write it out properly. I've attached evidence, websites, just reject it. we don't want that evidence. It's libelous or incorrect or false. So you haven't looked at it. You ain't got time to read it. This is, we don't like it. It's Labour. Well, I know, because I wanted to take the Labour Party out of government. We're collecting signatures to get rid of Labour permanently. We petition for a law to dissolve the Labour Party. Ta-da. How about that? As Cat Smith's not going to look at evidence. Why should we make a law that the Labour Party should be permanently dissolved? Because it's crap. Loads of artwork showing people's dissatisfaction. I don't know, whatever. But it's no grievance. What about the Corrupt and Legal Practices Prevention Act? Oh no, we can't have petitions about legal cases. What about Julian Assange? What about those post office workers? It's just you can petition the House of Commons for a resolution for anything. It doesn't have to be a civil case. Just tosh. I'm sick of it. This perfectly explains that how fit they are to be received. It explains it in exactly what I thought. But anyone would think that any human, any normal human creature would think that, unless they've been indoctrinated by Hillary Clinton, or tampon tax, or stick a cigar up your vagina or whatever, or been in the Labour Party for over 5 years and you come out like some kind of Starmer CPS zombie, that thinks that Lord Hanningfield should be prosecuted in a Crown Court in the Old Bailey or wherever, Southwark even, not in the High Court with his proper privileges procedure and the corrupt and legal practices. How did he end up getting into the Southwark Crown Court? Well, it's Southwark, because he walked south, not north, to the High Court. You take the high road and I'll take the low road to Southwark, and you'll be waltzing Hanningfield with me, with Jeremy Johnson. It's ridiculous. But anyway, I'm glad I found this, because it's just answered all my... it's just confirmed all my intuitions yet again. So now I've actually got a more detailed timeline. My other one, I was really proud of the other one, but it was kind of a bit incomplete. This one is a lot more thorough, but I'm still missing some information now. So we need to find out where the Courts of Civil Request records went to. And I think that all those translated petitions of Brodie Waddles can be paired up with the actual Assizes and Quarter Sessions records now, because they've been transcribed, and you can search for the names of the people in the actual courts records, so you can match up the records of the sessions and the names of people surely with each petition. So you actually get the petition, and you get the proceedings hopefully as well, and the registration, the listings from the courts, in the little in the listings books and things like that. They can all be sorted out and paired up. That would be pretty cool to if they were all matched up to the actual records. That would be a quite cool little project big project to sort them all out. I still don't know what has happened to these courts of civil requests, though. But something has got to have been happening with that tumultuous act after 1933. Don't know what, though. If they didn't make amendments to that tumultuous act after 1933, I really don't know what they're doing with it. They're trying to cover it up with the Criminal Law Act amendments, and then in 1986 they just scrap it. It's not much. I don't think it's that much use without a grand jury, because I think that if you've got a big campaign with a lot of people behind it, there's nothing better than getting the public behind it and public approval. I think that really was, in a way, I think it would have been a help now. I don't think it would have been this 1661 kind of quelling of petitioning and, William Mead and William Penn. I think that it actually would have been very, very, very beneficial. I think that if they had a grand jury and you get Extinction Rebellion, and they happen to, because you got all this Colchester Council watch now, all proper mums and, normal people getting annoyed with things that are happening, you get them in a grand jury, and, you get anything, that's, getting annoyed with the government now, and I think they'll be behind it. They would have smashed it, I think. I think the grand jury, they would have approved it, and they would have smashed it. I think it would. But then again, I mean, with the 1688 Act, I mean, I don't even think that many of them should be in court, really. And if they are, it shouldn't be like these magistrates' court prosecutions. It's meant to be like, it's supposed to be like an election petition, but it's like a petition. It's like, what's going on here, so I'm going to try. There's got to be some kind of thorough records in the county courts then, after they formed the county courts, because they did county court. They had like county court case management for high court sort of in the regions as well. So there's got to be some people from 1933 all the way through to 1986